안녕하세요. 오늘 날씨 정말 좋네요. 비 온 뒤라 그런지 공기가 아주 상쾌한데요?
네, 그러게요. 딱 기분 좋은 날씨네요.
이런 날씨니까 얼마 전에 정말 뜨거웠던 비트코인 사올 2025, 그 열기가 다시 생각나는 것 같아요.
아, 맞아요. 정말 대단했죠?
특히 그 VIP 데이 첫 세션, 커뮤니티가 곧 프로토콜이다. 이 주제가 참 인상 깊었거든요.
네, 저도 아주 흥미롭게 들었습니다.
그래서 오늘은 혹시 현장에 못 가셨거나 아니면 그 내용을 다시 한번 좀 곱씹어보고 싶으신 당신을 위해 저희가 좀 더 깊이 파보는 시간을 가지려고 해요.
좋습니다. 아, 그리고 혹시 더 깊은 맥락이 궁금하시다면 저희가 참고한 그 세 개의 파도가 몰고 오는 하나의 미래라는 리포트가 있거든요. 미리 읽어보시면 오늘 이야기가 더 재밌으실 수도 있어요.
오, 좋은 팁이네요. 자, 그럼 시작해볼까요? 그 세션은 JP 모더레이터와 함께 엘살바도르의 로만 마르티네즈, 홍콩의 아서라이, 그리고 발리의 케이플랩, 이 세 분 이야기를 중심으로 진행됐잖아요.
네, 맞습니다. 엘살바도르의 비트코인 비치, 홍콩 비트코인 협회, 발리의 코드 오렌지 데브스쿨, 각기 다른 지역에 정말 최전선에 계신 분들이었죠.
근데 이분들이 처음 비트코인에 발을 들인 계기가 다 다르다는 게 재밌었어요. 개인적인 경험에서 출발한 경우가 많았다고요.
그렇죠. 그 키플랩 같은 경우는 런던에서 집 사기가 너무 어려웠던 개인적인 경험, 거기서부터 시작됐다고 했고,
아, 현실적인 문제였군요.
네, 그리고 아서라이는 예전에 닷컴 버블 때 웹 개발자셨는데 그때 기존 금융 시스템의 한계 같은 걸 느꼈다가 이제 비트코인에서 어떤 가능성을 본 거죠.
개발자 관점에서 보셨군요. 로마는 좀 달랐던 것 같은데요?
맞아요. 로만 마르티네즈는 원래 엘살바도르 청년들 돕는 프로젝트를 하고 있었는데 거기에 비트코인 기부가 들어오면서 자연스럽게 연결된 케이스예요.
시작은 이렇게 개인적이거나 우연한 계기였는데 결국 각 지역의 특수성이 비트코인을 활용하는 방식에 큰 영향을 미치더라고요.
네, 그 점이 핵심이죠. 엘살바도르는 아시다시피 은양 계좌 없는 분들이 많으니까 비트코인이 정말 실질적인 금융 접근성을 높이는 수단으로 쓰이고요.
네, 그렇죠. 금융 포용.
발리도 비슷한 면이 있지만 거긴 또 이미 QR코드 기반 결제 시스템, QRIS라고 하죠. 그게 꽤 보편화되어 있다는 점이 달랐어요.
아, 그럼 비트코인이 경쟁해야 하는 대상이 또 있는 거네요. 홍콩은 어땠나요?
홍콩은 워낙 금융 인프라가 잘 갖춰져 있잖아요. 그러니까 비트코인이 단순 결제 수단이라기보다는 가치 저장 수단이나 기존 금융 시스템에 대한 어떤 대안 아니면 일종의 사회 운동 그런 측면이 더 부각되는 것 같았어요.
결국 그 지역의 필요가 비트코인의 쓰임새를 결정하는 거군요. 정답은 하나가 아니고.
정확합니다.
패널 토론에서 또 뜨거웠던 게 비트코인 순환 경제 얘기였어요. 그냥 사서 모으기만 하는 호들링만으로는 안 된다. 실제로 써야 한다. 이 부분에선 의견이 좀 갈렸던 것 같아요.
네, 특히 키플랩이 굉장히 강하게 주장했죠. 순환 경제 없이는 비트코인은 실패할 거다. 이렇게요.
인도네시아 법 때문에 직접 결제는 안 되는데 그걸 또 페세로프 시스템이라는 방식으로 풀고 있다고 밝혔죠.
맞아요. 그게 흥미로웠어요. 커뮤니티 내에서만 통용되는 포인트를 비트코인이랑 연동해서 교환하는 식으로 법적인 제약을 좀 우회하면서 내부적으로는 쓰게 만드는 거죠.
기발한데요? 홍콩의 아서라에도 비슷한 이야기를 했고요.
네. 월스트리트 같은 거대 자본의 비트코인이 완전히 먹히지 않으려면 우리 같은 일반 사람들이 일상에서 계속 써야 한다고요? 정기 모임에서 맥주값을 사토시로 받는다거나
아, 그런 작은 시도들.
네. 또 상공회의소랑 협력해서 비트코인 쓰면 소비자한테 리워드 주는 모델도 실험 중이라고 하고요. 물론 이게 얼마나 큰 흐름을 만들지는 지켜봐야겠지만요.
엘살바도르는 이미 좀 다른 차원이었죠. 비트코인 표준 환경이라고까지 표현하던데요.
그렇죠. 로마는 이미 비트코인으로 생활하는 게 어느 정도 자리 잡았다고 보면서 그래서 교육이랑 실제 사용 경험이 계속 중요하다고 강조했어요.
특히 비트코인 관광 얘기가 인상 깊었어요. 외부 사람들이 와서 비트코인을 쓰는 게 지역 경제에 도움이 된다는.
네, 외부 자금 유입 효과죠. 물론 거기서도 반론은 있었어요. 비트코인 가격 상승을 이끈 건 초기 상점들의 채택보다는 그냥 보유하려는 심리 아니었냐? 이런.
그것도 일리가 있죠.
하지만 장기적으로 보면 결국 실제 사용이 뒷받침되어야 한다는 쪽으로 의견이 모아지는 분위기였어요.
정부와의 관계도 정말 제각각이었죠. 엘살바도르는 대통령이 직접 나서서 법정화폐로 만들어버렸으니 이건 정말 세계적으로도 유례가 없는.
네, 아주 파격적이죠. 부켈레 대통령이 실험이니까요.
홍콩은 또 완전 달랐고요. 중국 본토랑은 다르게 웹 3.0이나 암호화폐를 좀 기회로 보는 것 같던데요.
맞아요. 거기는 약간 규제 샌드박스 역할을 자처하는 느낌. 정부가 비교적 수용적인 태도를 보이면서 새로운 금융 허브로 도약하려는 전략으로 보였어요.
인도네시아는 좀 애매한 상황인 것 같았고요. 결제는 안 되지만 커뮤니티 활동은 막지 않는.
네, 딱 그런 느낌이었어요. 키프랍이 재밌는 에피소드도 얘기해줬잖아요. 비트코인 피자데이 행사에 정부 비밀 수사관 같은 사람들이 와서 조용히 보고 배우고 갔다고.
아, 그랬었죠. 뭔가 서로 탐색하는 단계인가 보네요. 정부랑 속독 노력도 하고 있다고 했고요.
네, 그래서 앞으로 관계가 어떻게 될지 좀 궁금하더라고요. 이것도 결국 정답은 없고 각자 상황에 맞게 풀어가는 거겠죠.
와, 정말 세 지역 이야기가 너무 달라서 흥미로웠어요. 저는 개인적으로 그 각 커뮤니티가 처한 환경이나 제약 조건 속에서도 어떻게든 비트코인을 창의적으로 활용하려고 방법을 찾는 모습 있잖아요.
네네.
그게 정말 인상 깊었어요. 법적인 문제가 있으면 그걸 또 피해가면서 혹은 다른 방식으로라도 생태계를 만들려는 그 의지. 아, 이래서 커뮤니티가 곧 프로토콜이다 라고 하는구나 싶더라고요.
저도 정말 공감합니다. 하나의 기술이 이렇게 다른 사회, 문화적 맥락이랑 만나서 다르게 해석되고 또 다르게 쓰일 수 있다는 걸 다시 한번 느꼈어요. 엘살바도르의 금융 포용, 홍콩의 그 금융 중심지로서의 고민, 발리의 완전 풀뿌리 커뮤니티 활동까지 정말 다채로웠습니다. 비트코인이 그냥 코드가 아니라 살아있는 어떤 현상 같다는 느낌.
맞아요. 오늘 저희가 나눈 이야기가 비트코인을 그냥 투자 대상으로만 보셨던 분들께는 좀 더 입체적으로 이게 전 세계 커뮤니티와 사람들 삶에 이런 식으로도 영향을 주고 있구나 하고 느끼는 계기가 되었으면 좋겠네요.
그러게요. 마지막으로 이런 질문 한번 던져보고 싶어요. 이렇게 풀뿌리에서 자생적으로 커가는 커뮤니티 기반의 비트코인 채택 방식하고 또 ETF 승인처럼 점점 제도권으로 들어오는 비트코인. 이 두 개의 흐름이 앞으로 어떻게 될까요?
그게 서로 시너지를 낼까요? 아니면 뭔가 새로운 긴장 관계를 만들까요?
글쎄요. 당신의 생각은 어떠신가요? 한번 고민해 보시면 재밌을 것 같습니다.
네, 정말 흥미로운 질문이네요. 저희는 다음 시간에 또 다른 깊이 있는 탐구로 돌아오겠습니다. 오늘 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking you on a bit of a journey back, actually. Back to Bitcoin Seoul 2025.
That's right. A really significant event.
Definitely. And look, for those of you who couldn't make it, or maybe you were there and just want to revisit some key insights, this is for you. Consider this your express pass.
Yeah, we're focusing on a really fascinating panel from the VIP day. It was called Community as Protocol, Stories from the Bitcoin Adoption Frontier.
Right. And the goal here is to really understand how Bitcoin's growing globally, not just as tech, but, as a culture, a community practice.
Exactly. And our sources, they're the leaders themselves. We've got insights directly from Roman Martinez of El Salvador's Bitcoin Beach, Arthur Lai from the Hong Kong Bitcoin Association, and Key Pleb, who founded Indonesia's Code Orange Dev School.
These are the people right there on the ground making it happen.
Absolutely. Living and breathing it, working to make Bitcoin real for millions.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We kicked off the panel asking something pretty fundamental. What actually sparked their personal journeys into Bitcoin? What was that first trigger?
Right, because it often starts with something quite personal, doesn't it? A challenge.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like Key Pleb from Indonesia, his story, well, it came from this deep frustration. He couldn't afford housing in London.
Yeah, he mentioned looking at a 2-bed flat, zone 2, 600,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Just impossible.
Totally out of reach, that feeling that the basics are just slipping away.
And what's fascinating is how that didn't just stop at frustration, it pushed him to learn. He found Michael Saylor's podcast.
Ah, the Saylor effect.
Right, and that was his aha moment, the realization, as he put it, that the system is rigged.
It wasn't just his problem, it was systemic.
Exactly. He grasped that traditional money, fiat, just wasn't working as a store of value. Inflation eating away at everything, the latter felt broken.
So that disillusionment
Yeah,
was powerful.
it really was. It spurred him to move to Bali, November 2022, and then channel that energy, founding Bitcoin House Bali, the Code Orange Dev School.
Building something new.
Yeah, training developers, training users,
Yeah.
empowering people to join this, alternative system.
Amazing. From personal crisis to a global vision. But then, okay, Arthur Lai in Hong Kong. Totally different angle.
Completely different. Not about personal finance struggles, not about getting rich quick.
No, he saw a problem way back. Dot-com bubble, 2000?
Right. He saw the internet connecting the world, but missing something crucial.
What was that?
A native, global, efficient form of money. He felt bank fees, Credit card costs, settlement times, they were just too slow, too expensive, holding back innovation.
Interesting. A structural problem he spotted early on.
Precisely. So when he found Bitcoin in 2013, it just clicked.
The solution he'd been thinking about for over a decade.
Exactly. Permissionless, borderless, efficient value transfer. And he even mentioned the China ban back then, September 2013.
Oh, yeah.
He saw it as this kind of ironic signal. His take was, anything the Chinese government bans probably has potential.
Huh. That's quite a take. But you see the pattern, right? Google, Facebook.
Definitely. It often signals a perceived threat to centralized control. Or maybe just missing the boat on disruptive tech. It's this weird inverse indicator.
A strong signal indeed. Okay, now let's shift gears. Roman Martinez, El Salvador, Bitcoin Beach. Such an inspiring story.
Truly is. It started back in 2019. And the key was this unique donation.
Right, the donation with strings attached.
Exactly. Very specific strings.
Yeah.
The money had to be used to teach people about Bitcoin. They couldn't just cash it out to dollars immediately.
Which is brilliant, actually. It forces the issue.
It was a game changer. It forced innovation. They used the Bitcoin to fund things that the community actually needed. English classes, computer lessons.
That's some technical stuff.
Yeah, even university scholarships. All paid in Bitcoin. It wasn't charity in the old sense. It was empowerment. Financial literacy, digital skills, opportunity. All through Bitcoin.
Especially powerful in El Zante where, 90% were unbanked?
Exactly. They had no access to traditional finance.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit in 2020.
Right, when traditional aid struggled.
Their Bitcoin circular economy, built on that education, it proved incredibly resilient. It helped families survive. It actually accelerated adoption. They saw it as a lifeline.
Wow.
So you look at these three. Key pleb's desperation, Arthur's long-term vision for internet money, Roman's community empowerment project.
Such different starting points.
Totally diverse entries. But they all end up pointing to the same thing.
Yeah.
A need for something better than the status quo financial system.
Yeah. Which, really brings it back to the listener, doesn't it? It makes you ask, what problem is Bitcoin solving, or maybe could it solve for you?
That's the core question. Have you even considered it?
Okay, so we understand the why. Now, how are they actually doing it? How are they driving adoption on the ground? Because the contexts are wildly different.
Massively different. Let's start with Roman in El Salvador again. You've got that unique situation, 90% unbanked.
And then, boom! President Bukele makes Bitcoin legal tender in 2021.
Right. A huge top-down move. It wasn't just symbolic. It instantly opened up financial access for so many people.
And he mentioned something interesting, Bitcoin tourism.
Yeah. That's become a real thing. People are traveling to El Salvador specifically to spend Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah, to experience the circular economy, support local businesses that accept it. It's like living proof that it works as money. It injects liquidity, raises awareness.
That's fascinating. A direct economic impact driven by the policy.
Exactly. Now, pivot completely. Indonesia, key pleb.
Right. The polar opposite almost. Over half the population unbanked, like El Salvador.
But facing these incredibly strict laws,
Yeah.
you accept anything other than the rupiah, you could face jail time up to a year.
That's a massive obstacle. How do you even start?
Ingenuity. Key pleb talked about this closed loop system, loophole. Communities like Bitcoin House Bali are using it.
Closed loop, what does that mean exactly?
Basically, if you earn Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, and the merchants you pay use that Bitcoin to pay their suppliers who also want Bitcoin. It never needs to touch the fiat system.
So it stays within the Bitcoin economy? No conversion, no breaking the law?
Precisely. It allows this circular economy to function, kind of under the radar, despite the ban. It's clever.
Very clever. And they're growing.
Apparently. He mentioned 36 monthly meetup locations across Indonesia now. Real grassroots stuff, community by community, finding a way.
Amazing. Then, okay, Hong Kong. Arthur Lai. Again, totally different challenge.
Almost the mirror image.
Yeah.
99% banked population. Bitcoin isn't needed for basic financial access there.
So what's the pitch?
Arthur frames it as a social movement. He says people in Hong Kong are great at earning money, very financially savvy in that sense.
Sure.
But they're often indifferent to, the nature of money itself. The question, what is money, isn't something they typically think about.
Interesting. So the education is less about how to use and more about why bother.
Exactly. It's philosophical. In El Salvador or Indonesia, Bitcoin solves immediate tangible problems. Financial exclusion, remittances, bypassing restrictions.
Right. The need is obvious.
In Hong Kong, the existing system mostly works. So the challenge is convincing people to question that system. Why fiat? Why inflation? Why central banks?
It highlights Bitcoin's versatility, doesn't it? But also, yeah, a bigger educational hurdle in developed places. The comfort zone is harder to leave.
Definitely. It's less about immediate need, more about understanding fundamental principles.
Which naturally leads us to this big debate within the Bitcoin world, the circular economy. Do you spend it or do you hodl it?
Ah, yes, the eternal question.
Key pleb in Indonesia, he's firmly in the spend it's camp, very vocal about it.
He argues that without a circular economy, Bitcoin basically fails. Or at least it just becomes digital gold, centralized, captured by the institutions it was meant to challenge.
He lives it too, right? Uses it daily.
Yeah, he even tries to account for big purchases in BTC terms. He told this story about buying a scooter. Bought it a year and a half ago. Said in BTC terms, he could buy 3 scooters now for the same amount.
Wow, but that doesn't make him want to stop spending.
Nope. For him, it proves his point. Bitcoin is the slow way to stay rich, not the fast way to get rich.
I like that.
It's about utility, not just price. Spending it is the proof of work for the currency itself, in his view, making it real.
Arthur Lai in Hong Kong agrees on the importance, right, to avoid it just becoming some abstract Wall Street thing.
Absolutely, he stressed that. And he talked about a specific initiative from the Hong Kong Bitcoin Chamber of Commerce to actually encourage spending.
How are they doing that?
Using Layer 2 solutions. Think Lightning Network faster, cheaper transactions on top of Bitcoin. Make small daily payments feasible.
Okay, that makes sense. The main chain isn't great for buying coffee.
Right. And get this. They have a 2% merchant fee, but most of that actually goes back to the consumer as an incentive.
Really? So you get paid, in a way, to spend Bitcoin.
Exactly. Actively stimulating that spending side of the economy. Very clever.
And Roman in El Salvador. Bitcoin Beach.
For them, it's not even a debate. They operate on a Bitcoin standard. Earn, spend, save in BTC. It's just how they live.
It's their reality.
Yeah. He sees the circular economy as fundamental for education, awareness, adoption. Using it daily is the ultimate proof it works. It builds trust.
Okay, but there's nuance here. GP, who moderated, added some context.
Right, the HODL perspective.
Yeah. He made the point that we're still kind of in a land grab phase with Bitcoin. It's finite, the price has historically gone up, so holding makes a certain kind of sense. Claiming your digital real estate.
That's a fair point. Early days, accumulation phase for many.
He used a good analogy. You have savings and checking accounts for fiat, right? You don't spend your life savings on groceries. Maybe think of Bitcoin the same way. Your long-term hodl stack and a separate spending wallet using something like Lightning.
That addresses the sort of psychological barrier for some and the practical chicken and egg problem with merchants.
Exactly. Why accept if no one spends? Why spend if no one accepts? He also mentioned focusing on specific hubs first, rather than trying for mass merchant adoption everywhere immediately.
Yeah, learn from past attempts, like the Borixi Bitcoin Island project he mentioned. Ambitious, but maybe too soon, too broad. Inconsistent acceptance killed it.
Right. Start focused, build density.
So it's this tension, isn't it? Store of value versus medium of exchange.
It seems like it's both. And maybe it evolves. Starts as savings, becomes spending for some or for certain things.
It's dynamic. Depends on individual needs, community context, how mature the network is. Not really in either.
So with all this happening on the ground,
Yeah.
What about the governments? How are they reacting? Embrace, ban, watch.
It's a real mix. El Salvador obviously is the big outlier. Bukele went all in with legal tender. Full embrace.
The boldest move by far.
Then you have Hong Kong. Arthur's description of it as China's sandbox is fascinating.
Yeah, mainland China bans crypto, but Hong Kong is receptive.
Very receptive, surprisingly. They see Web3 crypto as potential economic engines. They're letting experiments happen, partly because of their financial history and lack of capital controls.
And Arthur's group is pushing them further.
Yeah, advocating for the government to actually hold Bitcoin or use it for subsidies. Really trying to integrate it. It's this weird contrast innovation hotspot within a restrictive regime.
And then Indonesia. The middle ground, maybe? Secret agents.
Yeah, key pleb story about the 5 secret agents showing up at a Bitcoin Pizza Day event at Bitcoin House. Not to shut it down.
But to learn.
Apparently, just observing, taking notes, trying to understand. It's super interesting.
It really is. It suggests they know they can't just ignore it, even with the ban in place. They're watching. Cautiously.
It's a subtle sign of Bitcoin's growing influence, even where it's officially discouraged.
JP added that general point about governments playing game theory.
Right. Maybe pretending not to care, or even being hostile.
While secretly stacking sats in the background to get ahead before mass adoption.
It's possible. Keep the price down, avoid panic, secure reserves, a strategic play. But he also stressed Bitcoin doesn't actually need government approval to work.
Its decentralized nature is key.
Exactly. But government support, it definitely helps smooth the path for wider adoption, gives people confidence.
He contrasted it with China's tendency to ban things.
Yeah, often shooting themselves in the foot economically by rejecting innovation, only to play catch-up later.
So it really raises this huge question about decentralized tech versus centralized power long-term.
Absolutely. Governments might be slow, they might be hostile, but the underlying human needs that Bitcoin addresses: freedom, inclusion, sound money.
And the grassroots energy.
That continues to drive it forward anyway. The innovation isn't waiting for permission.
Wow. What an incredible journey through Bitcoin adoption, straight from Bitcoin Seoul 2025. It's just amazing hearing how these different communities are building this, really, from the ground up.
Yeah, whether it's with government backing like El Salvador or through sheer ingenuity in places like Indonesia.
For me, honestly, the biggest thing is just the determination, the resourcefulness. It really hits home that Bitcoin isn't just code, it's so deeply human. It's about that desire for freedom, for opportunity, seeing how it literally empowers people who were left behind by the old system in El Salvador, or how communities cleverly navigate tough rules in Indonesia. It just, well, it lights me up. It shows that if there's a will, there really is a Bitcoin way.
And what struck me was that contrast in why people adopt. Sometimes it's pure necessity, survive and thrive outside a broken system. Other times it's this deeper philosophical shift towards sound money, building a better future.
It speaks to so many different needs.
Exactly. Bitcoin's value proposition is incredibly broad. And the panel just hammered home how vital education and persistent community building are everywhere.
Yeah.
Understanding all these different approaches is crucial if you want to grasp Bitcoin's global potential.
Yeah.
And it's just a powerful reminder that we all need to be thinking critically about money, about our financial systems, now more than ever.
So, wrapping this up, thinking about all these stories, what does this deep dive mean for you listening right now? Maybe it's just a little nudge, to check out your own local Bitcoin scene, see what people are building.
Or maybe think about using it next time you travel, even just buying a coffee with Lightning to see how it works.
Could Bitcoin solve a problem for you? Maybe one you haven't even thought about yet. Or offer a different kind of financial future. Lots to think about.